Tonight, Shaun wants to share a realization that he arrived at earlier this year, one that he believes can have a profound impact on everyone in this room, in a presentation titled, "The Secret Lives of Band Rejects, Taking Control of Your Happiness." Please join me in welcoming Shaun Hall.
Wow, thank you, Charlie, for that awesome introduction. That was fantastic. I am so excited to be here with you guys to talk about my subject. I'm Shaun Hall. You just got that from the intro. But I will be talking about the secret lives of band rejects. So, before I dive into that, a little bit more about myself. This is my lovely wife, Casey, and my beautiful son, Atten. I am the development team supervisor at Associated Electric. I am also the author and blogger of millennialleader.com, and I'm a new podcaster with hustleandharmony.com. But I'm also a speaker, hence me being here. And for those of you who know me and who have seen me speak, you know that I am a storyteller. I love stories. There's always something that you can learn from someone else's tale. And well, on this special event, the first public tech fair, I'm going to double down on that. I'm going to tell you guys two stories, both of which are from the music industry, hence the fade to black. So we will go with story number one. It's going to be from the 60s. It's about a drummer from a band of four. Now, this drummer was talented. He was good looking. He was he had everything that it took to be a real rock star. In fact, all four of the band members did. So this band found themselves lucky enough to get themselves a record deal. And this was something of dreams. They were set to record their record, their first album, in just a couple of months. So they started writing songs and practicing nonstop. However, 3 days before recording their first album, the drummer was kicked out. No reason, no warning, just simply kicked out. So he was devastated. You know, record contracts don't come to everybody. That's basically like winning the lottery, especially this record contract. The drummer I'm talking about, his name is Pete Best. The drummer who replaced Pete Best, Ringo Starr. 3 days before recording their first album, Pete Best was kicked out of the Beatles. This was months before the Beatles, Beatlemania ensued. The Beatles became wealthy and famous, and Pete was a nobody. He was a man without purpose. So, understandably, Pete went through hard times after that. He turned to drinking. All his music projects were complete failures. He even sued two of the Beatles for slander. It got so bad that in 1968, Pete attempted suicide. Thankfully, his mother was able to talk him out of it before he actually did. So I'm going to come back to Pete's story. I'm going to transition to number two. It's going to be oddly similar to the story that you heard. Really similar, actually. It only takes place a few decades later. It's about a bright, talented young guitarist based in the 80s. And like Pete Best in his story, this artist also was in a band that had signed a record deal. And like Pete Best in his story, this artist was also booted just days before recording. No reason, no explanation, just simply kicked out. The story is that he was literally handed bus tickets back to his home in LA from New York where they were about to record. So when he stepped on this bus, he couldn't help but think, what did I do wrong? By the time he got to his home in LA, he started thinking, no, they were wrong, and vowed to start his own band. And this band was going to blow his old band out of the water. You know, revenge quickly became his new purpose. So he became laser focused. Spite and rage became his motivator, and he practiced harder than he ever did before. He scouted out the best talent, and he invested heavily into all of his shows. He compiled an amazing roster of talent, and he, at this point, believed he now has the talent roster to best his old band. He wanted so badly to make sure his old band knew that they made the single worst decision they will ever make in their lives. And within a few years, his band was awarded a record deal. Within a few years from that, they released their first gold album. The artist's name that I'm talking about is Dave Mustaine. The band the heavy metal rock group Megadeth. Megadeth would go on to sell over 25 million albums. They had 5 platinum albums, 12 Grammy nominations. They went to tour the world several times over. Dave Mustaine is considered to be one of the most influential artists in the history of heavy metal music. But there's one problem. The band he was kicked out of was Metallica. Arguably one of the most successful and well-known rock bands of all time. His purpose of showing up his old band was impossible. In an interview in 2003, when asked about Metallica's success, a teary-eyed Dave told the interviewer that he often had a hard time believing in his own success. He often thinks of himself not as the legend in the industry that he is, but as the guy who got kicked out of Metallica. He was measuring his success from his purpose, which he had failed to achieve. Now let's transition back to Pete's real quick. Fast forward a couple of years, he has a wife, he has kids. He was also interviewed in the late 90s, and when asked about the Beatles, he says, "I'm happier than I would have been playing with the Beatles." He goes, "If I would have been touring with the Beatles, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have had my kids." Pete's story doesn't have that redemption that Dave's did, yet Pete seems happier with where he landed. Why is that? Well, it's because his purpose changed. Therefore, his metrics in which he measured his success had changed. He became a family man, a provider. He even toured every once in a while to get his music fix. The only thing he missed out on was fame and extreme wealth, which were no longer his metrics of success for him. So what can we learn from these two tales? Well, the first is success and purpose deeply tie together and directly impact your happiness. But more importantly, number 2, they're not real. Success and purpose, they're abstractions. They're concepts that each of us come up with ourselves, which means we control them. Pete chose to move on. He chose his new metrics for success and was happy for it, just like Dave chose to compare his success to Metallica and was not. We are in control of our own happiness, and that's what my take-home innovation is for you guys. It's a way to own your happiness. It's designed to help with 2 things. 1, discovering your purpose. Everyone here has a purpose, whether they realize it or not. It's that thing that you're doing that when you stop doing, people will notice. This take-home is designed to help you articulate what that purpose is. And number 2, it helps you define your metrics for success. We also are in control of this. If it's being a good father, husband, whatever, this will help you come up with daily goals that you can measure your success in. Was I successful today? Own your happiness. Do not let yourself fall victim to it. So, with that, again, I appreciate your guys' time. I am open for questions.
Thank you, Shaun. Thank you. If you see the take-home innovation that Shaun has is on page